Last time I was here, I said, next time you see me, I should have a knitted sleeve and maybe a little more. Well, you can see me, and I don't have a sleeve. What I do have are a new test sample, updated cardigan plans, and a few design decisions that completely changed the shape of my sweater. The cardigan I haven't knitted yet went from this to this. In this video, I'm walking through why I changed the neckline, why the sleeve stopped being set in, what I test knit instead of a sleeve, and what I learned from that test sample, especially around short rows, transfers, and gauge. If you like seeing how the properties of a fabric can drive design, keep watching. Hi, Olga Lynn here. When I went back and re-examined my earlier swatches, I realized how much I loved the way the top edge of the fabric forms scallops naturally. The stitch structure is doing real design work, and the top edge shouldn't be hidden. Once I noticed that, the V-neck didn't make sense anymore. I wanted to use that scalloped top edge as a feature. So I changed the neckline to a funnel neck, and the scallops will show at the very top. That decision came directly from the fabric, not the original sketch. Then I looked at the sleeves. The original plan was a set-in sleeve, and I wasn't in love with it. What I landed on instead is a baby dolman with a sleeve extension. The silhouette has a bit of an 80s feel. I still have real 80s sweaters that I knitted in the 80s, so I don't know why I needed another one. But more importantly, I felt the stitch pattern needed more space. I didn't want it stretched and having the texture lose its depth. The bigger silhouette lets the fabric stay relaxed. Even though I already had a test swatch and a gauge swatch, I still plan to knit a sleeve first, mostly to double-check gauge and make sure I programmed my increases and decreases correctly. Then I realized I don't need edge decreases at all with this design. What I actually knitted was a section with both increases and short row decreases. That simplified the technical design more than I expected. The test sample turned out well in most areas. Here, I'm removing the waste yarn. I was supposed to change a needle before I started. I already knew it had a bent transfer spring. It knitted the waste yarn just fine, no transfers there, but this stitch pattern uses lots of transfers. Fortunately, I caught it early and was able to change the needle without starting over. If you haven't come across a knitting machine needle with a transfer spring before, this is the part that enables automatic transfers on industrial machines and on the semi-industrial knitter 8. This piece right here is the transfer spring. When the needle holding the loop reaches its highest point, the hook on the opposite bed slips in and grabs that loop. I've linked an animation in the description that shows the operation more clearly. Back to the test sample. I was really happy with the short row decreases at the shoulder, and I'm glad I tested them because I hadn't actually tried short row decreases with this stitch pattern before. The bind-off settings also worked well. The knitter 8 has a bind-off macro, so it's usually just a few clicks and parameter entries to get a good result. I did find one error. I forgot to transfer the last bind-off stitch into the funnel neck, but that's easy to fix. And I also decided to shorten the funnel neck slightly. At this point, I'm sure of my gauge, and the shape makes sense. And I've troubleshot errors. If you saw my last video, you know that now it's time for me to get back in there and make adjustments. So it's back to designing it and back to the Knitter 8 design app. Then I'll finally be ready to knit the actual cardigan. I still haven't decided how I want to treat the front opening, and I'm going to wait on that. To be continued. Later.